it's time for a show. We got some questions. We got some coffee. These are important things to have. All right. Let's do it. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, 2019. My name is Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee. So good. Coffee is just so good. It really is, you know? Well, the first thing I want to do is acknowledge that it's September 11th, and I feel that that's important to do. We're not going to talk about it because I feel like there will be a lot of discussion about it today. There always is. And here we are 18 years later, and that blows my mind. I remember that day incredibly vividly. I'm sure many of you do as well. And there's really no martial arts tie-in, so I'm not going to take advantage of the emotions of anyone today and make this show about September 11th. Anyway, okay. I guess the only other thing I'll say is my continued condolences and empathy to anyone affected by the date. So, let's move on. It's Wednesday. Yesterday was a good day, a productive day. You know, yesterday was one of those days where I kind of rearranged my schedule. Not in the last minute, but knowingly. So, when you've got a list of stuff to do, right? You always put the most important stuff at the top, or at least you should. And that leaves stuff at the bottom. And some of that stuff at the bottom remains at the bottom because it will always be less important. There will always be something more important that comes up. And yesterday I dealt with some of that. I've got a lot of stuff. I'm trying to simplify. I think we've talked about this on the show a few times. And I keep identifying things that I want to get rid of, things I want to purge. And I spent several hours yesterday posting those things on eBay and Facebook Marketplace, just working to get rid of stuff, simplify my life. I don't need all this stuff. I don't even want most of it. A lot of what I have is just filler. And so it's time to get rid of that. It feels really good. Today, what's going on today? Today, got some new whistlekick products coming. Today's going to be an interesting day. Today is kind of similar to yesterday, but it's a different focus. Whereas yesterday was focused on getting rid of stuff, today's focused on some things that should bring in some more money, some more revenue. And I'm excited for those. Oh, pardon me. I'll probably go over to the co-working space to do that. What else? It's not a lot going on. Went to the gym last night. That felt really good. Feel a little sore in a few places, which is nice. Not really sore. I never like feeling really sore. A little sore. Just enough to know that, hey, I worked. That's what I like. And, yeah. Okay. So we got some questions. Yeah, I'm feeling distracted, and I not even about anything. I just feel distracted. Oh, you know the other thing I did yesterday? So, a friend of mine came. He was doing some work on the house, and while he was doing that, because I wanted to make sure I was available and not, head down to some work or cutting my hair, which I need to do. Maybe I'll do that this morning before I leave the house. I spent some time harvesting some things outside. And if you follow me personally on Instagram, you might have seen some photos last night. But there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot more than I would have expected. Grapes are starting to come in. Well, not starting. There are a ton of grapes out there. So I pulled a few bunches of grapes, and I got potatoes, and the bugs just slaughtered my tomatoes. I don't even think I'm going to grow tomatoes next year. I might, just to keep the seeds going, because I save seeds. Tomatillos went nuts. I made almost a half gallon of tomatillo salsa. Used jalapenos that I grew. There's something really satisfying about having food that you grew. It's just great, and then eating it. There were some wild blackberries I grabbed. What else? I think that was it from yesterday. And there's more coming. There's beets. There's plenty of Swiss chard out there. I don't really like Swiss chard, but the bugs don't eat it. There's kale in some spots. Some spots they slaughtered the kale. Darn bugs. There's a cabbage that's growing. See how big I can get that thing. I've never been able to get cabbage to grow. And I'm playing with ideas. I think I've got a design for an indoor planter that won't take up too much space that I'm going to put in the bedroom. So we got some questions. Let's talk about martial arts now. We got some questions. And if you want to ask me a question, drop it below and I'll answer it tomorrow. Or if you're listening in audio form, email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com. What do you think are the pros and cons of letting people know at work that you are a martial artist? I think the biggest pro is that you're engaging with people. You're telling them about an important part of your life. Imagine if you found out that somebody you'd worked with for years was a musician and never told you. Or they had any kind of passionate pursuit and they didn't tell you. If you considered this person your friend, you might feel left out. You might feel strange about that. Now, of course, martial arts is different because no one hears, oh, you're a musician? Can you show me a note? Right? Like, that doesn't happen. Good morning, Jordan. But I think we're at a point in time where most people in the world are going to be able to handle the fact that you do martial arts. Not everyone. And maybe you don't tell everyone. And maybe, unfortunately, there are a few people at your place of work that you're skeptical enough of that you don't tell them. Because the con is that it changes people's relationship to you. There are some people, though it's limited, there are some people who look at martial artists and think that we are inherently violent. Or that we are inherently aggressive. Those are almost the same thing. Yeah, I'm thinking about this. I'm trying to think through scenarios as I'm talking. And almost everything I'm coming up with is positive. I wouldn't run around advertising it because that can seem like you're bragging or challenging people. But if it comes up in conversation, if it comes up, what were you doing this weekend? Oh, I trained in the backyard. If you let people know these things and you do it with humility, I think it'll come out okay. What do you think is the hardest part about being a martial artist, and how can we overcome that? I'm pretty sure I'm going to answer this question differently depending on when you ask me. I can think of a few different answers. And I've talked about probably all of them, at least all the ones I'm aware of, at some point on Martial Arts Radio. The first one is the challenge that we innately have with things that are ongoing? Jordan says, oh, that's a really good question. Yeah. I did an episode about how, part of the reason that people drop out after black belt is because there's an endpoint. And socially, we like things to have an endpoint. Martial arts doesn't have an endpoint. It just keeps going. So that can be challenging. Oh, how do you overcome that one? You stop teaching people that rank is what matters and that the black belt is what matters. It's about the path you walk. It's about the process. Another really big challenge is as we become better and better and learn more and more, you either have to invest more and more time or you're going to watch skills fade. And that both of those can be really challenging for people. Right now I'm on the skills fading side. And I think that most people are, honestly. Most people don't add more and more and more time as they go, as they advance in their training. So that's a challenge. I think it mostly comes down to time. It's either going to be time or what's in your heart. If you're able to get to a place emotionally where you step back and say, I'm training, I'm doing it for me, I'm not tied to an outcome, I'm just looking to get better eventually, then I think that solves a lot of problems. I did an episode about a year ago that was a little bit of an epiphany for me about martial arts as service, and not just teaching, but participation. And that realization has been really helpful for me. And if you haven't listened to that episode of Martial Arts Radio, the gist of it was, you can look at your own training as something for you. You can also look at your own training as something for others. If you try to flip that, so you're training for other people, at least for me, that helps me show up to class when it's more difficult, when the timing is off, or helps me to try a little bit harder when there are others around me because they're watching me. That's made an impact on the way I train, and is likely something that would help a lot of others. Other greatest challenges, I'd kind of like to hear what other people feel. What is your greatest challenge as a martial artist? Maybe you can comment that below. Because I'm wondering if my experience is typical on this one or not. I can see another one in there around personality conflicts. We see schools split. We see people leave, start their own school, drama within schools, things like that. So I think we have to have at least a little bit of a collective bucket for interpersonal challenges. Because after all, martial arts is taught by people to people. And whenever you get multiple people together, things can happen. Finally, last one. I don't mean finally as in like, yay, we're done. Removing the idea that Jordan says, removing the idea that there's an end goal. That is in reality, all reality, like you said, we must be there for ourselves. Yeah. Have you ever dreamed that you had to use your martial arts skills in real life, and at the end you were a hero? Probably, but I don't remember. This is what happens when you train for... Oh, hey, my martial arts anniversary was just a couple days ago. 36 years. I forgot. I should have acknowledged that on the show. Actually, it happened over the weekend. Yeah, I was in Maine with the team. That's fun. Um, yeah, 36 years. That's pretty cool. It's a long time. It's a long time to do anything. Coming back to that question. Sorry for the distraction. The reason I got distracted is because I was thinking, as long as I've been training, I'm sure I've dreamt about it. Thank you, Richard. Richard says, happy anniversary. As long as I've been training, I'm sure I've dreamt about martial arts at some point. But there's nothing that sticks out. There's nothing recent. In fact, I don't dream terribly often. When I do dream, they're usually quite vivid and it's usually pretty clear why I'm dreaming what I'm dreaming. Like I say, the last dream I remember had to do with car problems because my car has been challenging. I don't fantasize too much about getting into physical altercations, about being a hero, about protecting others. I used to. And I think that I did that then because I wanted that outside validation. I craved. I wasn't picking my nose. I was adjusting my nose ring. If you have a nose ring, you understand. I used to really crave outside validation. I used to want, I would imagine these scenarios where, this guy's a jerk and I'm going to step up and I'm going to protect these other people and everybody's going to be really happy and, maybe it'll even be like a movie and there'll be a pretty girl and we'll live happily ever after, But that's not life. It's not reality. And I've given up on that being reality because I make my own reality. And I don't need that outside validation. I don't need other people to tell me I'm good enough or whatever, enough. It doesn't stop me from being aware when I'm out in public. It doesn't stop me from watching and making sure that if a scenario arises that I might be helpful in, that I could be. But I'm not emotionally tied to it like I once was. So, yeah. Sorry, that's not really a fun answer to that question. It's a great question. I wish I had a better answer, but I don't. Here, I'll show you one of the things that I'm selling. I'm selling a lot of my swords. I have a pretty substantial sword collection and have started to purge quite a few things. Most of them, if they're not Japanese style blades, are from Toledo, Spain. So like there's that one. There's a letter opener from Toledo. I don't know if we can get any of the detail in there. Yeah. So some of these came from my grandmother, who actually had collected some of these smaller ones. My uncle is from Spain, so a lot of this stuff was brought over. I have a letter opener from my trip to Spain when I was 12. That I'm not getting rid of. That's like the main thing that I'm keeping from that trip. One of my rules is that I keep things if I use them, or if there is emotion or story tied to it. Oh, where'd that go? There we go. Wesley, I would love for you to drop that question for tomorrow. Would you mind doing that? Wesley's asking about my thoughts on minimalism. And with already 20 minutes on today's episode, I want to wrap up. Thank you, my friend. I could probably talk for 30 minutes on minimalism, and I don't want to rush that because it's been a big part of my life. I am scaling back. I'm contracting on a lot of things, and I think I don't know that that necessarily is directly related to martial arts, but I am identifying what's important to me, and stuff is not important to me. Martial arts is, whistle kick is. So I'll give you some homework in just a second, but let's wrap up the show. Don't forget, we do this show every weekday morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern, live on YouTube, but you can catch it later at firstcupwithjeremy.com or audio-wise in your podcast feed. We're on every podcast app that I'm aware of. If you want to ask a question, best place to do is to drop it below this episode, or really any episode of First Cup. I get notifications and grab all those questions. But if it's easier for you, you can also email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com, and I'll answer it usually the next episode. Don't forget all the stuff we've got at whistlekick.com. Don't forget the podcast, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com, or you can find that in your podcast app. Episodes every Monday and Thursday. All right, let's talk homework now. Usually tie something back to one of the questions today. So first off, I would love to know what everyone thinks of the hardest part for them of being a martial artist. You know, maybe we can have some conversation about that. Drop that below. But that's not the homework. I'd also love to know if you've dreamt about using your martial arts skills, if you've been the hero in your own mind, so to speak. But here's your homework. Your homework is to identify the people in your life that, if they knew you were a martial artist, might react negatively. And I want you to go a step further and think about why you think they would react negatively. Because here's my guess. My gut tells me that most of those people would not actually react negatively, that it's something you're projecting onto them. So 2 steps: who and why. Okay. And if you don't have anyone that you can think of that would react negatively, imagine the type of person that would. What kind of archetype of humanity might react negatively to you being a martial artist. I will see you back here tomorrow. I hope you have a fantastic day. Peace.